All right, I've brought you all here yet again to talk about The Curse. Now, I did a recent breakdown of the final scene of episode 4 and why I found it so effective. But there is a dark, mean streak to this show. This isn't just like a cringe comedy. This is just such a fascinating show. It's been compared to something like existential and like weirdly uncanny like Twin Peaks. But it also has DNA of like the cringe comedy of Michael Scott almost.
Not only am I your ship's captain, I am also your party captain. Woo! We're gonna get it going here in just a few minutes.
I'm your party captain too, and you are gonna put on your dancing shoes later on.
Hey, Mike,
so we are gonna
don't mind,
rock it! What?
Please, okay?
This is just a fascinating show to watch. I can't believe it's been made because every single time someone goes, should I watch The Curse? Should I watch that new Emma Stone show? As much as I love it, as much as I feel like the #1 fan of this show, I go, I don't know if I can like put people through it. I don't know, because so much of the show is just sitting there going, I hate this, but I can't stop watching. To me, it feels like in episode 4, 5, and 6, the show is finally operating at sort of the full capacity that these reviews early on were suggesting. What we are watching is a couple slowly like pull each other apart, and they're about to like crack. We saw all the DNA of like emasculation and poor communication and just like infantilization to each other in the first episode, but now it's like coming out, it's coming full circle, and it feels like it's almost putting in all these pieces for a total disaster. But I think the thing with this show, and the thing that's fascinating, is it is constantly almost teasing you. Now, obviously, Asher as a character is the butt of like so many jokes. The show is so cruel to him at this point. From episode 1 to now, it's just getting worse for him. But I feel like we are meant to feel like Asher as an audience. I feel like I'm the butt of a joke a lot of the times I'm watching this show. And I know if you haven't seen this show, you're like, why would you watch a show that feels like it's bullying you? I'll explain what I mean. This show is called The Curse. This show sets up a supernatural curse in episode 1. And ever since then, ever since that little like itty bitty snippet of like, ooh, what could this be? It is kind of like intentionally disappointed you and misled you moment to moment. And every time you give up on the idea that there is actually a curse and gone, oh, what this show is really about is people's own self-destruction and own self-fulfilling prophecies, the show will then throw you a little bone just to get you hooked in enough to go, ooh, is something going to happen? And then it doesn't. And it is constantly operating on this rhythm of like, oh, are we losing you? Come back a bit. Here's what you were promised. Actually go away again. I don't know if I'm reading into it much, but it feels like it's trying to put us in the space of Asher. I feel like I am constantly getting humiliated and disappointed and being made to feel like an idiot. The amount of times I've been watching this show and I point to my girlfriend, I'm like, oh, the thing's gonna happen. The curse is gonna set in. And then it like doesn't. And then you just end up watching like a 6-minute scene of someone going through CCTV footage to discover nothing.
Okay, keep going. Fast forward. Does he ever go in?
And then you feel like Asher, like the whole time during that section in the latest episode where he's digging through the fire station CCTV to see if someone planted chicken, right? Only to then not find out anything. And I was sitting there like this, like genuinely hunched over my knees, like, right? Like I was in it. Yeah. I was like hooked. And then Asher finds nothing. And of course he found nothing, because I think the punchline of this show is the idea that it's kind of spelled out that this whole concept of a curse is stupid, right? Like it's playing with that, and then it's just trying to see how far it can kind of stretch that narrative tension of we've made you feel like a fucking idiot multiple times, but you're still getting sucked in. Like, I feel stupid. I feel like Asher, all right? And then I have to watch Emma Stone and Benny Safdie laugh at Asher's expense and the turmoil he's feeling for feeling like he's in this sort of curse.
Really worked up about that chicken thing, huh?
Did you put that in the bathroom? Seriously, you can tell me. I'm not going to tell him.
I wish that I was that smart.
Oh.
Please, I would die, but I'm not.
But I'm there with him. I would freak out from the chicken. I wouldn't be able to handle it. And on top of that, again, it got me again, because then in that scene with the nails, in the hand, where he's trying to get the girl that cursed him and kind of validate whether she has supernatural powers or not, I was so disappointed. So disappointed when his hand started bleeding and she didn't get to make the final guess. Now, yes, could it just be a coincidence that she guessed 3, 3, and 2? Like, absolutely, but the show is so well scripted and so well performed that we get Nathan's thought pattern there, where he goes, oh, if I repeat the number twice when saying I've changed it, and she guesses this, that shows that she has insane intuition and can probably read my mind or something, right? And as a result, as a character, even though she's probably just making random guesses, the moment it gets too complicated, his hand starts bleeding from holding that many nails, so the game stops. I was still like, but I was still left there when the episode ended feeling uneasy and like, I need to know. I just think it's a masterstroke. I think what the show's trying to do is put you in the headspace of someone with crippling social anxiety. Nathan Fielder's Asher is a character that has been bullied. It has been established that he's been bullied by Dougie, who is now running the show. On top of that, he is consistently emasculated. There's a scene in episode 1 where Whitney's dad puts a tiny baby carrot on the plate, and we find out that is a joke at the expense of Asher's like micro penis, right?
It's not funny.
It's pretty funny.
It's not.
Shout out by the way to the Cherry Tomato Boys. I've had a few comments on my last video referring to fellow members of the Cherry Tomato Club. For some reason, all the fans of this show, particularly male fans, have decided that the name for the fan base of this show will be the Cherry Tomato Club, in reference to Asher's just humiliatingly small manhood.
Asher, people are a lot like tomatoes. You got your big old beefsteaks over here, like you're just bad. And you got your little tiny cherries. They're very different, but once you slice up a cherry and you put it in a sandwich, it tastes great.
Which just makes me laugh, because I wonder if Nathan Fielder finds any of this amusing. I think what the curse as a concept, right, is bringing out of these characters is fascinating, because in episode 1, right, Whitney got really mad at Asher for not taking the curse seriously, and he was like, a curse? Ridiculous, yeah? Like, he didn't take it seriously. But then his chicken got stolen, and I'm like, whatever, right? Who cares? Then later, Emma Stone meets the girl who made the curse and just kind of laughs it off with her.
Oh, I love that. Do you like to dance?
We do dances together. We're not allowed to post them online.
That's so fun.
But then the girl mentions that like, oh, I cursed you to take out some of your chicken. And it's almost this interesting moment, because that makes Asher start taking it seriously. And you know what? If I was Asher, I would start taking it seriously. That would prick my ears up. I'd be like, wait, what the? And I find it really interesting, because what it says to me is that Winnie was really scared that the curse was going to affect her and her show and her well-being, right? So she asks Asher to go resolve the curse and make it right. And he says, yeah, all sorted. I guess I find it really interesting, because once he starts taking the curse seriously, and once he starts getting a sense of mental turmoil over it, And once he starts getting a sense of mental turmoil over it, she's almost moved on from it. She doesn't seem to care. It's like, oh, is this only affecting him? Whatever. Now, to Whitney's credit, there is a chance that Asher got home and lied to her and said he handled the curse, and therefore that's why she's not taking it seriously. I just find it interesting that she took it as a threat, took it seriously, and then once he starts seeing serious side effects, she completely dismisses it. And I guess what solidifies this further is then her interaction with Dougie. There's this great scene in the fire station where Asher starts having like an existential crisis, right? Because he sees chicken in the sink. Again, I would be losing it. I'd be uncomfortable, right? But anyway, so Asher sees chicken in the sink and he genuinely thinks it's a prank. He's like, I've opened up to the people around me in my life about this curse. They haven't taken it seriously, and now they're trying to provoke me and play a prank. I think the interesting thing is it's actually solidified that neither of them had a hand in this, because when Asher isn't even looking, they both have a conversation going, oh, did you put the chicken in the sink? And in one of the funniest moments of the season, just because of how cruel it is, right? They both start laughing, going, oh my God, I wish I was that smart. I wish I thought of that prank. How funny would that be? So not only does Whitney not care about the curse anymore, because clearly if it is tangible, it doesn't pertain to her, But she also just finds the fact that Asher is like struggling and having serious anxiety about it genuinely funny. And is willing to then bully Asher about it with Dougie, someone who is established to have been bullying Asher when he was younger. And I love that scene, by the way. I think it's in episode 4 or 5, where Dougie actually comes forward and says, hey, like when we were growing up, I'm really sorry for bullying you. And Asher goes, oh, you were bullying me? I thought we were just having a laugh. It says something about Asher's character. I read an interesting review that talked about the fact that Emma Stone's character is really good because you can tell that her kind of social dysfunction is based in like white guilt and gentrification. And then they talked about how Dougie is clearly a character whose social dysfunction comes from just like an immense sense of guilt and sadness about the loss of his wife. But they said Nathan Fielder's character Asher isn't as good because you can't really figure out where his social dysfunction is coming from. But I actually have to disagree and push back. I think that is what makes Asher so compelling, because it feels like to me what Asher's character is exploring are just those people that just don't fit in, just don't socialize properly. It's the same thing that was being explored in The Rehearsal and Nathan Few, but it does feel like an exploration of a character who is kind of idiosyncratic and at the very least like really neurotic. On top of that, it could also be exploring a character who's genuinely just like on the neurodivergent spectrum. The more we found out about Asher, I think the more of an empathetic character he's become. In the first episode where he clicks at that woman and goes, oi, 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 you're not talking to her, you're talking to me, like eye contact with me.
Let's talk about us, okay? Look at me when I'm talking to you, okay? Don't look at her.
When we first see that, it comes off as like some really poorly calculated, icky, misogynistic, like kind of like alpha, like Jordan Peterson caricature or something, right? But I guess on rewatch, after seeing what we've seen from Asher's character, this scene almost just feels like a moment of desperation for like control and just like, I'm going to try be that guy. I'm going to try be the dude, and just completely misfiring, because all we've seen throughout the show is that he just isn't that guy. He just misfires and bombs all the time. And I guess what I'm trying to say here, the most profound point I'm trying to get at here, is what it feels like the curse is to me. What it feels like the show is trying to get at is a manifestation, right? A physical, tangible representation of just that like paranoia of anxiety. You know, anxiety disorder is described as this like overwhelming fear that something bad is going to happen, and you can't tangibly explain that feeling. You can't put a finger on what is coming. It's just this feeling of dread and this fear that something bad is going to happen. And for Asher's character, you can see that, this fear that something bad is going to happen, or he's going to embarrass himself, or there's going to be this divine punishment. And that's why this curse thing with the chicken is fucking with him. What it feels like to me is this show is substantiating that paranoia. Asher is constantly scared of social interactions, and we see throughout this show that he has a right to be.
Just think of it as putting the babies on hold for now.
It's okay. Asher can fill that role.
Wah, wah. Baby cry, nappy time.
We not only see him fumble these social interactions and embarrass himself consistently, but then we have to witness what people have to say about him throughout the show, both to his face and around him. I think the thing that makes this show compelling to me isn't the curse idea. It isn't all the eco-home, passive home stuff. It's the fact that we get these quiet, painful moments with these just broken, weird, uncomfortable characters. These types of characters that in any other show would be completely sidelined. All these horrific, uncomfortable scenes that we keep seeing feel like the worst case scenarios that people with social anxiety worry about. That's what it feels like the show's trying to do to me. You know, those people on TikTok that talk about their experiences with social anxiety and this fear of like completely fumbling a social interaction, and the idea that people talk about you after you're gone, and it feels like that's what this show is interested in exploring, just watching these painful social interactions happening and then having to watch how people talk about him, what people say about him, and how cruel people can be. That's why that scene with Emma Stone and Dougie, as funny as it is, there's a cruelty there as to how they talk about him. And on top of that, not even just about the chicken scene, but that scene where Whitney basically agrees with Dougie, we are going to make him the butt of the joke of the show. We are going to make people wonder why I'm even with him, which is something that we've established Asher is worried about.
Asher, people are a lot like tomatoes. You got your big old beefsteaks over here, like you're just bad. And you got your little tiny cherries.
The thing that's effective about the cherry tomato concept, the fact that Asher has a tiny penis, is the fact that it is such a humiliating complex for him, and it's clearly established that's probably something he would need to disclose with like future partners. It's clearly something that plays on his head and plays on his mind. Every time we've seen him pee, he has this look of disgust. And there was a great post on Reddit that was actually talking about how effective this is as a concept. The genius of the dick scene. A story by No Nukes at All. It's just so brilliant. By establishing so early on in the series that Ash has a tiny dick, which presumably has tormented him his whole life, we see him in a totally different light than we would if we didn't know. We understand his insecurities, and we understand why he stays with Whit, even though he doesn't seem happy at all in the relationship. Because he's worried he'll not be able to find a hot girl like that again. Again, just brilliant writing. But I think it solidifies Ash is probably scared that that secret's going to be revealed. That's probably haunted him his whole life, and helps paints a portrait of someone who probably lives in fear of being both humiliated for his physical attributes, for not being hot enough for Whitney, and on top of that, also his social malfunction. That's why that scene with the test screening is so effective, because as much as we want to believe that saying of no one thinks about you as much as you do, or all those embarrassing moments you've ever had, no one ever laughs about that, that's a really comforting thing I think people with social anxiety and just general people tell themselves. I've seen it on Reddit all the time, right? People go like, what's one thing you wish you knew earlier in life? And someone goes, oh, the idea that, you know, people don't really think about those embarrassing moments that you think about. But can I be honest? And it feels like the thesis of this show is actually people do sometimes.
Everyone's thinking about you, literally. You're walking down the fucking hallway thinking everyone's looking at you thinking, oh, that guy looks weird, or that guy acts weird, or that guy's weird. You're not special enough for people to give enough of a shit because everyone's just worrying about themselves.
What was that?
The untrained op.
What was that? You looked down and then you rolled your eyes at him. Why?
He had his fucking cell phone in his hand against the pottery while we were giving it to them. And it's like, you can't even put that thing down while we're giving a gift.
I want you to say that again exactly as you just said it.
Like, let's be real, right? Like, me to you. You haven't had interactions with people where you get home to your family or your partner and go, wait, what the fuck was that about? How weird was that? Everyone does it, all right? So this lie we tell ourselves that, oh, no one's thinking about that embarrassing moment. Like, I'm sorry, people do. And what the curse feels like it's really trying to hammer home is, yeah, people can be cruel. All these things get thought about. All these things get talked about. And it is not a kind world for people that just don't socially fit in and can't handle interactions well. Now, Whitney is someone who can put on a mask and handle social interactions well, but it feels like she almost needs fuel from Asher to do that. It doesn't feel like she can stand on her own 2 feet. She needs to be pushing someone down, and the person she pushes down is her husband Asher. People have been asking, why does she keep him around? And it's like, I think that's why. He makes her look good by extension.
You have believed in us from the very start, and we could not be more excited to be in business with you. I'm sorry, you should see Asher right now. He is literally pretending to play guitar.
The fact that these final couple episodes have kind of like solidified the fact that she's willing to really humiliate him at this point. She's going to rename the show to Green Queen, and a lot of the appeal is going to be her flirting with other guys, ridiculing Asher for like holding a phone, is just so fascinating. I also love that Dougie is perceptive enough to sit there in the editing room and go, hey, I think you're a bit pissed off at Asher there. Hey, I think you're a bit annoyed at Asher there. Oh, he clearly bothered you. Like, that's the show. The real show is how unhappy you are with Asher and how annoying Asher can be. And I think the really interesting question is to sort of posit here is this kind of a chicken and the egg relationship? Is Whitney so mean to Asher that then it creates this shell of a man that constantly seeks her approval? Or is she so mean to Asher because he's so pathetic from the jump? Like, what came first? Was she always mean? Or has this been just years of like, oh my God, for fuck's sake, Asher, can you get your shit together? Or has she always been like this and he's slowly just like lost the ability to like engage with her in any sort of like charismatic level? Before I cut off, because I could talk about this show forever, I just love the scenes that this show chooses to focus on. I absolutely adored the section where they were trying to get the shirt off and then they tried to recreate it for social media because they had a genuine funny moment. And then she's like, we need to capture this. We need to recreate this. And once that pressure's on, Asher fumbles. But you know what? That's sort of the point in the show where I started to feel really bad for Asher. I think I got a different read on him because honestly, I get it. Like if I had a really good moment with someone and then they couldn't even just sit in that and they're like, oh, we got to recreate it. Oh, you're not being funny enough. Oh, you're not, I'd be like, well, I was funny enough before. And now it's ruined, you know? And like, he doesn't get to say that. There's this incredible fight that follows, and both sides make like fascinating points. But I think the thing I love about that scene is just how long the edit lets it sit. It goes on for like 5-10 minutes, and there's been a lot said about how this show doesn't cut properly and holds too long and drags. And I'm like, no, because you need these moments of tension and just drawn out for them to be effective, because it leaves you going, something bad's going to happen. Again, it puts you in the anxious headspace. That shirt section's great. The comedy club section's great because you know something bad is going to happen, and when it happens, it is just horrific. Oh my god, though, the episode 5 front to back, I thought was a masterpiece. That whole section where they're dealing with the couples that are actually going to buy the homes. And can we just say what it is, all right? I think everyone's beating around the bush in the interviews, but this is specifically what the show is targeting. Emma Stone's like white guilt, white savior complex, right? She's explicitly and specifically picking couples of color to make herself look good, right? And then she is consistently disappointed when the progressive choice she makes by picking people based on their skin color doesn't pan out. She picks a couple with an African-American wife, assuming that they'll all just be aligned with her values, and then gets really upset with them when they aren't on the side of the native Indians.
This should be in the disclosure. The easements relate to, just clarifying, vague language in the Indian Act from over 100 years ago. That's what they're doing.
If you go back far enough, they could put claims on anything. No?
It just says you support the tribe. That's all.
What if we don't?
And gets really upset with them when they aren't on the side of the native Indians in regard to the road tax. The payoff at the end of the episode where Asher goes, oh, we'll have that guy who's a conservative do the house inspection, and then he ends up having native Indian roots and actually being on their side, pisses Whitney off to such a point where like now it's a massive turning point in their relationship, because not only has she lost power, is she humiliated, but she now needs to confront the fact that her progressive nature and her like white guilt isn't even that easy to navigate, right? Like it isn't that black and white. It isn't that cut and dry. And she takes out on Asher, and the show making us sit in that with Asher. That instant sex rejection he gets is just, it's a little thing, yeah, but it's just so painful. He's like, oh, by the way, you're in your fertility window. And she's like, cool. You know, and then you just have to sit in that with him. Like it doesn't cut, it doesn't leave. You just have to be like, ugh. And then the scene keeps going. He tries to go, oh, well, good night, and like give her a kiss on the back. And you can tell he's almost thinking like, oh, do I start kissing her neck? Nah. And then you just have to sit in the room, and that's where the episode ends. And then you just have to like sit there. It just puts you in the headspace of those couples that just like go to bed on a fight, and like that's it. And it's just so well done. It's like, what other show does that? I know it's a little thing, but it's why the show's so effective. It's making you sit in that discomfort. I felt like my week was ruined. You know, I had to sit there and like carry on with my life after watching that just painful relationship breakdown. And then, oh my God, the ending to episode 6 with the nails, just such an effective scene. It's such a good display of why the show is working as well as it is. I think initially the show looks like it's going to be a subtle exploration of sort of like white guilt and gentrification. It feels like that part of the show is so like easy to understand if you're being like even relatively perceptive. And it feels like the more substantive thing that this show is exploring is kind of a relationship breakdown. It is kind of the cruelty that people can show to each other to get ahead in social situations. Dougie is having a great time basically like mentally and verbally cuckolding Asher to Whitney throughout the show, and Whitney is also like having fun engaging in that. She will step on Asher any chance she gets, but I think it's just such an interesting look at how sort of the weakest stepped on. Now, Asher isn't a great dude by any stretch, don't get me wrong, but you can't help but feel like the portrait they're painting here is this is how his life has probably gone since he was a child. We don't really need a flashback to how he was in school to get it. We know Dougie bullied him. He's getting bullied by his wife now. He's getting bullied by Dougie again. The show's willingness to go, you know what, kids are cruel, adults are cruel, it's a cruel world. And again, referencing that thing I said before of, oh, people don't really talk about those embarrassing moments. People don't think about the embarrassing moments the way you do. 1-to-1, yeah? You're watching The Curse. We're all adults here. We're tough. People do. I think that's why I love the show, because it's actually exploring the idea that no, like, it's a cruel world and sometimes these things are thought about and talked about. And not only that, sometimes the world isn't soft. It can be really, really mean and cruel to people that probably need a bit of an easier go round. You know, Asher probably needs to be surrounded by more empathetic and sympathetic people. To me, it feels like the show's trying to like have a handshake with the audience and go, oh, actually, you know how people told you not to worry about it? No one probably thinks about it. Well, actually, you know the time that you tripped over and spilled coffee all over your white shirt in front of those people in the cafe and everyone looked away and you thought no one saw? Well, actually, they did all see. And actually, they do really think about it. And actually, they tell it at dinners to new people to get a laugh. And on top of that, they also really don't like your haircut. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. If you want more Curse content, let me know. If you want a specific episode or scene discussed, let me know. And if there's any other movies or shows you want me to talk about, please let me know in the comments. Thank you so, so much for watching. Have a lovely day.